What's up, Mecha fans, and welcome back to the channel. So today we've got an interesting article to dive into. This is not something that I'd usually talk about on the channel, but just purely because of who it's coming from, and also the fact that I've kind of read through the article and it really piqued my interest. We are actually going to be talking about an interview with Yoshiyuki Tomino, where he essentially said that the whole idea of Gundam and space colonies is simply not possible for humans. Before we dive into the details though, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also head on down to the comment section below after hearing about this article, which of course I will talk about in the video, or if you've read it yourself. Let me know your thoughts on Tomino's opinions here. Let me know whether you think he's right, let me know whether you think he's wrong. And if you want to see more videos where I talk about things like this, then yeah, please do let me know. Alright, so to give a little bit of context to this article, Yoshiyuki Tomino was recently at a speaking event, which is called the Space Tide 2025, which was held in Tokyo. And it's essentially like a space business kind of event where people talk about like how things were evolving. You'll have like people from NASA, presumably, and people involved in space travel. And then, of course, you have someone like Yoshiyuki Tomino showing up, who is well known for creating a series that heavily dives into the idea of humans living in space. Essentially, within this interview, he said that humans cannot live in space. And of course, he's referring to what happens within Gundam, where you have the space colonies and humans kind of emigrating from Earth to space. And he's essentially saying that that is not possible with how humans are currently, I guess. Now, of course, there's always going to be the argument of, well, we could evolve to that point where we can, where, you know, the kind of pressure of space and the harshness of living in outer space, we can manage that. Like, as humans, we are well evolved, well equipped, and there may come a point where that is possible. But I guess he's kind of speaking from what he sees humanity as currently and how he's seen humanity evolve over the course of his lifetime, and then how he kind of foresees humanity continuing to evolve. And basically looking at all that, he's kind of said, no, it's not really possible. Now, of course, as well, there's going to be people that come in and say, well, he's not an official, he's not a scientist, he, doesn't work in space travel. He doesn't fully understand all this stuff. But I mean, the man made this series 46 years ago. And to make a series like this, you have to have some knowledge of the science behind it and the whole idea of space travel, because you need to get things at least somewhat realistic. Of course, there's creative liberties and, fictional liberties that you can take. But generally, you've got to have it grounded in reality. And that's what makes Gundam such a great series, is that it is very much grounded in reality with these out there ideas. You consider what happens in the original Gundam and how they kind of explain it there. And then you've got to think that it's been 46 years since that series came out. Naturally, Tomino has an interest in space and the whole concept of humanity emigrating to space. So naturally, he's going to have done his research. So, even though he's not like technically a scientist, he has that knowledge. He has that research that he's probably done. So I think he's well equipped to give his opinion on something like this. The other interesting thing that he goes on to say, though, is that it's not that humanity cannot go to space. He does specifically state that space travel is very much a possibility, and it's something that he wants to see, where essentially you can carry people into a low orbit satellite and conduct like a circumnavigation tour, which will basically be going around the Earth, and you get to see it from above. I fully agree with that. I think that is very plausible, because at the end of the day, they're going to be going up for like maybe a few days. So I think humanity and humans can handle something like that. But the perspective he's coming from is that, like, a lifetime kind of thing, it is not possible for humans to like live out their entire existence within space. Again, this is how things stand. Within thousands of years' time, it could change, because humanity has massively evolved in the last like 20 years with technology, and it's evolved, even further from that. You go back to the cavemen, see how far we've come, that kind of thing. So it's very much a possibility, like in the far future. But again, this is coming from Tomino, who is kind of talking about how he sees things progressing in more of the near future and how humanity is now, whether or not it's possible to go into space. So again, this is just a really interesting article that I will link down below for you guys to have a full read of this. I'm just kind of giving the brief overview of the major points that he makes. There's a couple of other key points I want to talk about as well. First off, he's talking about Mars and the whole idea of going to Mars, and he does make reference to certain people that have talked about this whole idea, and if you're in tune with the world as it is, you will know who he's probably referring to when he's talking about this particular thing. But the really interesting thing he says is that these kind of people who talk about going to Mars, they don't have the ability to grasp the distance within the universe, and the thought of flying a rocket out to Mars, fair enough, having enough fuel to get there, but what about getting back? What about having the appropriate resources to set up like a base in a certain amount of time. And let's face it, like, we don't know what's actually on Mars, and we can, have all these kind of ideas about like what could be on Mars, and we can send drones out there and things like that, but you're never truly going to be able to know unless you're there, because a drone flying around Mars versus a human on Mars could trigger very different events if, say, there are other life forms on there. And that's going into a whole other theory. But again, this is just really interesting stuff. Like, you're interested in space and interested in the whole concept of life out there and the possibility of people living on other planets and things like that. This is just a fascinating interview. He does talk about this whole space elevator idea. And again, another thing that he really emphasizes here is this whole idea of logistics. Like, we can have these great ideas and see them in sci-fi movies and anime and things like that, but thinking about them logistically within real life, these kind of things aren't quite possible. So he does talk about the space elevator. He says, this elevator is a 5-car train, not a 1-car train. It is impossible to establish logistics on this kind of scale, and social life is impossible without logistics. I guess there it's kind of talking about the whole idea of like, how long will it take to get there, employing people to do this kind of stuff. Like, those are the kind of things that need to come to mind. And at the end of the day, this is going from a place with gravity to a place without gravity. How does that all work? And again, like, these are the kind of things you really need to think about. It's different with a rocket compared to something like this. Like, how does it kind of like maintain its shape and not move and all this kind of stuff in space? There's so much complexity to it, which again, Tomino does kind of dive into and question as well in this interview. And once again, very fascinating interview, which I will leave down in the comments. And I think that's it. Sorry, I'll leave down in the description. And I think that's really it when it comes to this interview. He does talk about how he took a lot of inspiration from the American Civil War when writing Gundam and did a lot of research into that. But that's not really relevant to the whole sci-fi stuff. But again, there's a lot of stuff in here that's really cool. It's not the longest interview ever, but again, there are, pretty interesting tidbits that he does talk about. Where do I stand on all of Tomino's comments here? I am definitely of two opinions. I agree on the fact that I think as things are now, it is not possible for us to live in outer space. I think we kind of need to do a little bit more traveling into outer space, almost like holidays, and just up into the atmosphere and see that kind of stuff from a perspective of the public as opposed to just like a select few people. I think that's definitely something that needs to happen first before even considering emigrating to outer space at any point. But at the same time, humanity has evolved massively over, again, the past 20 years with technology, and over the past century significantly as well. So I think within the next few centuries, maybe even within the next 50 years, things will continue to evolve, and this may be a lot more plausible in 10 years time compared to how it is now. And I'm talking a lot more plausible, not like minor, but the way that technology is advancing, I think that, in 10 years time, we could be having a very different conversation. Before I get out of here though, please do leave a like on this video and subscribe if you're a fan of mecha anime content and want to see plenty more videos like this in the future. Also, like I did say earlier, head on down to the comments section below. Let me know your thoughts on Tomino's opinion, take on the possibility of humans emigrating into space as per his experience creating Gundam and the whole concept of space colonies. And if you would like to see more videos from me like this, where I go through some of these articles, talk about some of these interviews with certain creatives, and just kind of dive into it and discuss it, then let me know, because I've had a good time making this video, and this is the kind of stuff that I do really enjoy making sometimes, because it's a little bit different to the typical review or ranking or whatever it may be. It allows me to kind of hyper focus on like a certain topic and talk about things within Gundam, but also at the same time talk about some other external topics which definitely interest me. Thank you once again for tuning into Mecha Chat today. I'll see you guys next time.